because anytime you're, as a founder, if you're not in sales and marketing, you're not growing your business. And so everything else detracts from that. So to me, you should be handing off everything to a point to where you can be the ROI generator of your business. And so the order it looked like for me was administrative task first. Next was customer success. You just have to be able to hand it off with excellence. And you have to be willing to, you have to be constantly measuring those things.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to the Small Business Mentor podcast, where we shine a light on the black holes of business growth with your host, Alan Pence. In each episode, we explore the leaps and bounds entrepreneurs make as they push their businesses beyond the 1 million mark into the realm of professional sustainable growth. Stay with us as we navigate the journey from brute force to finesse.
Hey everybody, welcome to the pod. We have a great guest for you today, Clifton Sellers of Legacy Builder. They are a content marketing agency. Clifton, welcome to the podcast.
Good to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So Clifton, tell us, you're kind of an inspiring story, sort of the way you got into this. And so kind of give us an overview of where you were and where you are. And then we're going to kind of get deep into what's happening with marketing, content marketing today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a crazy story, but one that we hear often. I think a lot of people just aren't telling it. And it really started 3 years ago. So my background, born and raised in Enterprise, Alabama, grew up, played football at the University of West Alabama, and then got a degree in accounting. Didn't want to be an accountant. So I went and started working in higher education and ended up getting my master's and doctorate in organizational leadership. And then went on this tear where I was working in fundraising. So I worked in fundraising and higher education in central office. So I worked at University of West Alabama, Troy University, in their central office fundraising. Then I went into the nonprofit sector, worked there for 3 years, raising anywhere from $10 to $15 million a year. And then 3 years ago, really it all started, I think a lot of people have this origin story. 2020, when the world shut down, I went home. They told me I couldn't go to work anymore. Up until that point, I was your standard millennial. Like my work defined everything about who I was. And I was just chasing title and position and money and all that stuff. And when I was forced to go home, I had one child at the time. I now have two beautiful daughters. And I'm looking around at my life and I'm like, man, what is going on? Like, what am I doing? What am I chasing? Where am I going? And that really planted the seed of what do I want the rest of my life to look like? I ended up getting a job up here in Birmingham, Alabama, moving up, and I was working. And I tell people the reason I started this entire journey is because I was sitting on a couch one night, buried in credit card debt, buried in student loan debt, and looking at my stay-at-home wife raising our now two kids. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, what is my exit strategy? How am I going to get out of this? I was doom scrolling on Twitter at the time, and I saw this guy post. I say all this was inspired by one social media post. And it was a guy that says, I make $1,000 a week online. And I was like, okay. And most of the time I would have been like, this is a bunch of crap. Like, this guy's probably lying to get my money. But I spent $29 on this Gumroad course. And it was a 10-page Word document. And it was like, this is how you set up a profile. This is how you set up this. This is how you set up that. And I'm just sitting on my iPad, setting up this profile called, and my first handle was Legacy Builder 8. I'm setting up this Twitter profile and I just start posting. And I go into this 6-month tailspin of chasing every way people tell you that you can get money. I tried Amazon, FBA, eBay drop shipping. I still got Sonoma towels in my garage that I was going to resell on. I tried affiliate marketing, this, that, and the other, and I failed at all of them. In January of 2022, I had about 8,000 followers on Twitter at the time. And I was like, I am just going to start writing and telling my story and fall in love with writing. And I started doing it and my account exploded. I gained 40,000 followers in March of 2022. I just started seeing all this traction. I was like, man, I really like writing and branding and positioning myself. And then I was like, what about doing this for others? And I talk about this concept a lot. A lot of people go straight into build, offer, sell. And I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't. So I started reaching out to other people that were delivering content services. And I got a role as a writer at another agency as like we'll call it a side hustle. And I was like, okay, I'm going to start making some freaking money off this. And so I started writing, and I was writing like 10 to 20 threads a week for another agency for people's personal brands. And I was making about $2,000 a month just off that, on top of my job that I was working. So I would like go to work, write during lunch, get home, put the kids to bed, write some more. And about 2 months after that, the guy came to me and said, hey, you can do this on your own. And I was like, okay, what does that look like? And I tell people I got all my education off social media, like the people that I've met, the thoughts, how I grow my business. It all came from relationships that I've built because of my personal brand, all the opportunities, the networking. So I launched Legacy Builder with me, a laptop, and I started with 2 clients, got up to 5 clients, got up to 10 clients my first month, and it just started exploding. And I was really early to the game, right? I was kind of an OG, if you will, of somebody coming in saying like, hey, I'll help you build your personal brand. And I started just on Twitter. And then it just exploded. Started when I got to 7 clients, I realized I had a decision to make, and I couldn't handle it on my own. I couldn't scale past. I was at about $10,000 to $15,000 a month at that point, and I couldn't scale past that without getting some help. And that's when I decided to go into a true business model and started getting more writers, training them up, handling sales, training writers in how to build it. And up to this point, we've had 200 plus clients use our services in some capacity. And I quit my job. That's a cool story too. So I wasn't going to quit my job. Like I was like golden handcuffed. I was like, and I had reached a pinnacle. Like I was a VP of development at a very reputable nonprofit. Like on paper, I have done exactly what I've set out to do. And I was like, still miserable. Not because of the place I worked, but because I was gone all the time. I left before my kids got up. I got home. I had like an hour and a half with them before they went to bed. And I had a business coach. And then about 3 months before 2022 was up, he looked at me and he was like, we got on a Zoom call and he said, man, you look terrible. And I was working like 150 hours a week. I was like 40 pounds heavier than I am now. And I was like, bro, I feel terrible. He's like, you got to quit your job. I was like, mm-mm. It was the classic thing, like insurance, stability, like all the limiting factors that keep people from going all in on entrepreneurship. And then he was like, we're picking a date right now. And so we circled March 1st, 2023.
And this is when you were doing 10 to 15K a month, or was it more than that?
At that point, so this is crazy. At that point, I was making about 30 to 40K a month. So I'm making 30 to 40K a month and I'm still feeling like I can't quit my job. And so he's like, hey.
And you're managing other people and
insane, right? So I circled the date March 1st. I saved up 6 months of living expenses. Like I just started funneling all that money into a savings account. So when I went in to quit my job on March 1st, I had 6 months of living expenses and a runway. So I wasn't operating out of like, can I feed my family month to month? And I'll tell you what, I quit my job, gave a month's notice, walked on April 1st, and we 5x'd the business the next quarter.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So, and can you give any stats on where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. So year to date, so last year we came up right at $1 million, and year to date we're on track for 1.2 to 1.4.
Wow, that's fantastic. I'd love to hear that, Clifton. Congratulations. A couple things I take out of there as lessons for other people. One is, a lot of people talk about entrepreneurs taking risks. And certainly we do. I mean, I don't buy the Silicon Valley risk story, because when you quit your job at Google to go do a startup funded by somebody else who's paying your salary and you have it kind of guaranteed for 2 years, and your worst case scenario is you go back to Google, I don't really consider that a ton of risk. But when you have a family and you're the sole provider and you're walking out on your own to, what was probably, mostly a month to month kind of business at that point, that's risk. And so I think the way that now you might look back on it and say, hey, that was a little excessive to, be doing 40, 50K a month and still working another job, which
It was.
I'm sure was not paying that.
I could have quit way earlier if I wanted to.
Yeah. But that idea of staving up the money and giving yourself that runway, that I think a lot of entrepreneurs need to think about that, right? And the point is you are going to take risk, but you need to mitigate every part of it possible as a regular Main Street entrepreneur who isn't funded by investors. So it's an impressive track record. So I'd be curious, now that I assume the growth rate is continuing, you're probably looking at hitting a couple million here soon. And the more you sell, I say it's like the growth chaos continuum. So the more people you bring in, the higher the chaos within the company will become. So you're probably right at an inflection point where in another few months or a year, you're really going to be facing the need to build out a lot of internal structure at the company to scale to the next level. So is that something you've confronted yet at all with employees and management?
Oh, yeah. I confronted that summer of last year.
Really?
Yeah. So I brought in a COO, Brett Eric, who's been running operations for us on the back end. And there's a lot of, growing a business. It's a lesson, man. It's a lesson in temperance. And you also just don't realize how much you don't know until you get there. There's a lot of problems in entrepreneurship and business that you literally have to make it to a certain point to realize the brevity and like the type of problems that you're going to confront. Even though people like you and other people can warn you of those problems, but until you're in it, it's like parent, like everybody can tell you how to be a parent. But until you're holding a child that's dependent on you for everything they need, you don't know. You just don't know. And so brought in Brett and really said, like, how does this become a legitimate business? Well, number one is I can't be involved in every decision. And fulfillment can't be dependent on me. And we also have to structure the experience in a way where when clients come in, whether we have 10 clients or 10,000 clients, we have to figure out a way to streamline where we can scale up and it's a people issue. It's not a we don't know what we're doing issue. And first we set up and blew up our onboarding and set up systematic processes for onboarding, because each thing comes with first it's how do I sign clients? Okay, now I have clients. How do I keep clients? Okay, then you got to extend that time horizon. So what does fulfillment look like? And then you have to have great systems and checkpoints, especially in what we're doing. It's not like we're selling umbrellas, right? Where we just go make more umbrellas. We're dealing with people's personal brands. And it's a very emotional thing, because when we post on behalf of people or we write something, it has to sound, feel, and be authentic. And I think that's a big tipping point in the industry that we're in right now. So a lot of people are writing content, but not a lot of people are writing content that matches voice, tone, and direction and is actually leading towards an ultimate goal. And so Brett overhauled our entire onboarding system. Then we overhauled how we hire and train writers, and then customer success, and then basically making it into a streamlined process where all of our decisions go through a decision matrix of, okay, we can make this decision. Because I'm a visionary. I think I have the ideas and Brett tells me what it looks like in the system in which we operate, which I think is the greatest balance, right? Like you got your visionary here where it's like, I got a bunch of ideas that can make our business better. And then Brett looks at me and says, okay, big fella, if you're going to have that idea, here's what it looks like from an execution standpoint. And he's done a great job with that. And I honestly wouldn't be here today without him. So really happy about that decision and him making the choice to come alongside us and build this thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, couple things there. One is, for a lot of people, it takes a long time to find that Brett, or that COO or that integrator, in the EOS parlance. It took me a long time, and as a result, a lot of delays and a lot of lost revenue along the way. So that's awesome that you found that. And I love this idea about, you guys you started growing, you got to that million. And then that's when you started looking at, all right, now we've got people coming in. Now we got to get the processes, the fulfillment, all those, you started doing the process and systems after you figured out how to grow the company, which is the crucial part. And so I assume now you probably focus on mostly like strategic kind of growth and building the name of the agency and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'll speak to one thing you just said, then I'll answer that question. I think a lot of people want everything to look good on paper before they roll out a business or an offer. You just don't know. I think the things that has led to our success is trial and error and quicker feedback loops to repositioning and learning and applying that feedback and being transparent. I mean, we're very transparent with our clients about, hey, we want to be a disruptor in the branding space. In order to disrupt in the branding space, we have to have freedom to try new things and do the things that are required to disrupt it. The good thing is we're the guinea pigs. We practice what we preach. So Brett has almost 300,000 followers between all of his socials. I have over 400,000 follower audience. And so we are in the lab testing new strategies in our brand before we roll it out to client brands. But the cool thing is now, to the second part of your question, I'm able to focus on being the face, creating content, building the brand in the way that it needs to be built, where it's not, because for a long time, and it's very easy when you're building a personal brand, people want to work with Clifton, right? They see Clifton, and from building, selling businesses, that's not a business that you can build long term when it's so dependent on me. And so leveraging the service, professionalizing, and you can see it with our new site, the things that we've done. Now I'm truly the founder of Legacy Builder, and it's not murky to where Legacy Builder and Clifton begin and end. And that's been my major focus the last 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I've sort of revised how I think about it. Is originally I think I conflated marketing and sales too much. So I was like, the founder has to really sell, and they're the only person that can really do it. And I agree with that, actually. Like when you started out, right, it was you selling and fulfilling and doing everything, right? And then as you go, you can get some fulfillment done by somebody, but you were probably still doing most of the selling. But what you want to get to is where you're doing the marketing, right? And somebody else. And then if you look at, so you're doing lead generation, and you really, hopefully at some point, get somebody else doing the closing, right? And that's sort of where I've changed as you grow a little bit, maybe around where you were at 1 million, or just over. That's when you kind of move into marketing and have somebody else do the sales and the closing, because you're just out there generating, and the vision, obviously, but you're generating the leads essentially.
Yeah. Because there's only so much capacity with one person, right? So,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think founder-led sales is, for a lot of businesses, people make the mistake of trying to exit too many things early on, where sales and marketing should be the last thing that a founder exits.
100%. I love that. I love how you said that.
And I see people do it. Well, I'm looking for a sales rep. Well, here's two things. One, the best person to sell, it's the founder, because they embody everything that the company believes. Number two, we have grown so fast because the feedback loops I get from being on sales calls and listening to the objections. Because you think, what is marketing? Marketing is overcoming the obstacle for somebody to buy your service. What's the best way to find out the obstacles of somebody to buy your service? It's to be on sales calls, because you're literally getting the feedback and the objections in real time. And then you can craft your messaging on the back end. That's why when we work with clients, one of the things we want to know is, hey, if you're comfortable sending us your sales calls, we can actually take that data and craft messaging around it to overcome those objections before they get on call. That's what great, and we'll get into the content side of it here in a second, but that's the cool. And the thing is, and we didn't even touch on it in the story, I haven't ran ads. I haven't. The business that we built has been on the back of social. All of our social audiences have been how we build Legacy Builder. And it's our value prop for our clients. And it's a missing piece in everything.
Yeah, I mean, that was fascinating. That thing. We will get deeper into that, like taking the sales call and making it into content.
Yeah.
It was fantastic insight. So, and I just wanted to hit, like, this is a theory that I'm working on now and I want to test it a little more. Is like, do you think that there was like, or would you order what you gave up doing? And what order did you give up doing stuff? Or like, what would be the ideal order? Is it like sort of what I've been thinking is, hey, look, if you're doing administrative stuff like booking appointments or sending out invoices or blah, 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 that's the first stuff you give up, right? Second stuff is like starting, like fulfillment of whatever service or product you're doing, right? So if you're actually like delivering the service to the client, that's second. Third is like onboarding the client, right? And then fourth is probably sales. And then fifth is marketing, right? So it's like, what kind of order did you see of things that you needed to get off your plate and hire someone else to do?
I think the biggest thing before you hand off anything is you have to make sure you understand the standard of excellence in which it should be delivered.
Right.
I think a lot of people hire, let's take onboarding, for example. If you don't understand what success looks like in onboarding and you hire offshore talent's a big thing right now. Let's say you find an offshore talent that's super good. They're super qualified. You say, hey, here's onboarding. If you don't have that standard operating procedure and what success looks like in that, you can't hand it off. And a lot of people are like, well, I'm just going to hire this expert to come in and they'll know what to do. But they don't, because you have to teach them what excellence looks like into that service. So for me, it was, hey, the first thing I handed off was fulfillment, because I knew what success looked like on timeline for content. I could articulate that very well to a writer. So I said, hey, this is what fulfillment looks like. This is what excellence looks like. Well, then it comes into time, because anytime you're, as a founder, if you're not in sales and marketing, you're not growing your business. And so everything else detracts from that. So to me, you should be handing off everything to a point to where you can be the ROI generator of your business. And so the order it looked like for me was administrative task first. So all the ticky-tack things like emails and invoicing and all that stuff. Then it was fulfillment, because economies of scale with a service-based business. If I have 8 clients and I'm writing content packages for all of them and I double that to 16, well, I can't do that and sell on the back end. So we start handling that. And then everybody wants a piece of me, right? So there has to be a barrier. The next was customer success. So it's like, hey, there has to be some change agent with customers, or you're going to lose them because they don't feel like they're talked to. So you have to have a point of contact and a barrier where I'm only brought in when it's like, hey, Clifton, this client has a very specific question. Because then basically what you're selling at that point is access. Like the further you move away from access as a founder to where it seems like a add-on, like a great benefit, but it doesn't seem like you're constantly available, but you are available at the same time. That's when you really hit a sweet spot as a founder. And so those are the order. You just have to be able to hand it off with excellence. And you have to be willing to, you have to be constantly measuring those things. Because I'd be lying to you if I said we handed off writing and it was then end of story, it was perfect. No, we had to, like, there's times where we've had to go back in there. And I'm very fortunate, man. Brett is finding whatever you're strong at. And some founders are the exact opposite me. Some founders are integrators. And so they're awesome and they need that like marketing visionary. Some founders are the opposite. So Brett does a good job of like, when I see problems in the business, I'm like, I kind of send him out on a fact finding mission. And I'm like, hey, I see these things. Can you go out and figure that out? And I would say, and I think you said this to me, Alan, the first 2 to 3 hires that you make, and I've read this before, should be able to replace you eventually. And I've been very fortunate in the hires that I've made in my business where I didn't hire a lot of people that were mediocre. I hired 2 to 4 people that were really great that I could see eventually, if I wasn't here, what would happen, and it would be just fine.
Yeah, that's great. And congratulations on that. Most of us, including me, did not do that as effectively the first time around, right?
I'm very fortunate, man, and I don't take it for granted. Like, and the validation of that point are people like you and other people that I've worked with, where they're like, and this is legitimately probably my first real business.
Right. Yeah.
And for me to have the success I've had and to hire the people I've had is only because, and I will say, it's not me, it's part me, but I take in advice and learn and ask and humble myself to say, hey, what's the mistake that you made that I don't need to make in this situation?
Yeah. That's great.
And then I do it, you know?
Yeah. And it should be clear you work with, I'm a client of yours. So we should be clear about that up front. But, one thing you said that really struck me is I think that there's something where the more that a customer needs you as the founder, the less mature your offer is. Because to be honest, like, I love talking to you, Clifton. This is fun. But like, what I want is the result that we engage for. And if you're like, hey, I can get you that and I can show it to you, then I don't really need to talk to you, right? But if I need to talk to you all the time, that means that you haven't built out that ability to show or either define the offer enough that it's, everybody understands it, and then show people the metrics to get there. That, I think that's a real insight. It's like the more the founders needed, the less mature the offer is in the business.
Yep. And that's why it's so important. Like everybody in an organization, we have Monday stand up, right?
Yeah.
And we go through all our clients in an hour. And the reason we're able to do that is because we understand exactly what our offer is and what success looks like. And we understand the propensity points of, hey, if this is down, we know exactly the intervention to put in place to fix it. Whether it's writing quality or growth or impressions or anything. And I don't have to do that. The more you can delegate as a founder, that's beautifully said, man, the maturity of an offer. And I'm thankful that our offer is mature enough to this point to where I come in for the cool stuff, right? Like the visioning of what does a year look like? How do we leverage this? What's success look like over a long period of time? And it's almost like a friendship with clients more than a, hey, what are you doing to make me successful? The team's got that. I'm just here to be a resource when any additional things can come up.
Yeah, that's well said. All right, well, let's get into what you actually do, the personal branding. So talk a little bit about how you see the personal branding landscape today and like what's involved in it and what are kind of some of the key trends in it.
Yeah, so I think social media over the last decade, I think it's been an afterthought for a lot of people. What we see is people hire social media departments and they say like, well, we're going to build a business page just to check a box on social media. And founders and people that are aspiring entrepreneurs, there's 2 lenses I can look at. I'll look at it from the founder lens. We can go into the other one if we want to down the road. But from a founder lens, they're like, I am the company and the company is me. My personal story and all that isn't necessary for the company to sell, and I don't want to divulge that. I just want to be a company man. But what we've seen over the last, I would say 3 to 4 years is the personal branding and the shift from I'm going to build the company up to I'm going to build the key stakeholders from founder to C-suite level executive up to where people are identifying with a person and, oh, by the way, they're working for this business that can solve this problem for you. And I think you see it in all the things that we're doing. If you think about consumer branding and all those businesses that have grown the fastest, they're usually tied to a very strong personal brand. You see it with the YouTube deals, the TikTok deals, and all that. So what we did, and I was case study number one. Who am I? Why am I on this call? My name is Clifton Sellers. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama, and I built a massive audience on Twitter, LinkedIn, and in my newsletter. And now I have power and influence. It's not because I'm not an ex-Google guy. I didn't go start the next great company and I was employee number 3. And then I started Legacy Builder. I don't have any foundation from a past experience to build on. I started this, and at the core was, I'm going to tell my story and build a personal brand. People work with us at the onslaught of, I like Clifton, I like his story, I want to work with him. And he has a solution. And this is the most important part. You can be a great person that people like, but if you can't solve problems, you can't sell. And so we come alongside people that have a great product. They're already killing it in business, but what we've seen is what's going up: ad spend, Google, all this stuff, all the traditional marketing channels that people have depended on for the last 10 plus years are uber competitive. Like getting ranked, getting your Facebook ad in front of somebody, doing all this stuff. And it costs a lot of money for what's a return. But we come in and we actually build a personal brand telling the story of that founder, CEO, agency owner, business executive, C-suite level. And we humanize it. And it actually lifts up everything else that's going on in their organization. Because when they see an ad, they search the person. The person is solving, just like what we talked about, solving every pain point, every objection, telling their story, humanizing themselves. And it's like, oh, I want to talk to this person over this person. Because go to LinkedIn right now and go to pick a profile, throw a dart at the board. It's probably a picture of a CEO, no content, and where they went to college. And probably 4 to 5 recommendations from some people they worked with over the past 5 to 10 years. Now you put that over a Legacy Builder client, and you got pages and pages of content where they're establishing themselves as a subject matter expert in the field, actually look like a person that you want to spend time with at the airport lounge, and you want to call them. That's the difference in marketing today. You have to, like, the authenticity, the being out there every day, and how, like, that's the thing about content teams that I'm seeing the biggest issue with in traditional business models. Is they're like, well, we posted our Facebook post today, like, you can pay me my money. But there's so much more nuance to it that it's an education, and we're early. I mean, I get on sales calls all the time with people that get it because they've tried it and they failed, or people that are like, please explain why I need to do this. And once the light bulb clicks, they wish they would have started 4 years ago, because it's the best way I can describe it is this. It's digital real estate. It's SEO on a whole nother level, because you're capturing all these audiences on LinkedIn and Twitter, which is the 2 primary platforms that we use. And then you're funneling them to your website, to your newsletter, to this. And where does it go? It doesn't. It just keeps compounding. You're getting more and more content, more and more eyes, more and more impressions. And you have an asset that you can go to every day and talk to a potential prospect, a potential networking partner, a potential investor. And it's right there, right at your fingertips every single day.
Now, how much do you look at it as a funnel, like where social is funneling into
Oh, absolutely.
sort of owned properties? Is that sort of how you look at it?
Absolutely. And that's how, like, if you think of the funnel that you just imagine, it's, okay, here's all your rented space. It's Twitter, it's LinkedIn, it's all these different, I would put those above Twitter, LinkedIn. A social media channel with a personal brand is way stickier than paid ads and cold email and billboards. Like, insert traditional marketing tactic number 1, right? The LinkedIn and Twitter is a very sticky platform. And then you go even stickier to a newsletter, and to newsletter, community, podcast, different things like that. You're funneling them into email list, all this stuff. And then you come down into how can I help you? The conversion factor. Is it an offer? Is it a business? Is it coaching? Is it consulting? And then that's just the offer side of it. Then you think of the networking aspect of it. I've been able to connect with people all over the world. Some of the most brilliant people that I've ever met, because before social media, I was in a 50 to 100 mile radius, or you got to go join some community and pay money to get in, and you hope that it's the right one. But with social media, you're getting access to even more subject matter experts and people that can help you expand your business exponentially.
Yeah. So do you see like conversion, if you were talking about conversion to sales,
Yep.
does that happen from social media, or is that more like you got to get them down to these other things like the newsletter or email list or something like that?
I think it's foundationally. I'll tell a story. This is crazy. I was at a bar in Tampa at this event, and I'm sitting at the bar waiting to order a drink, and this guy's standing next to me. And I introduced myself to him because I'm that type of person, and he said, Are you Clifton Legacy Builder?"
Wow.
True story. I can't make this stuff up. I said, "Yeah, that's me." He said, "I was in your funnel 6 months ago." And I said, "Well, why didn't you buy?" He said, "I just wasn't ready financially." I said, "Okay." So we talked. He ended up buying me a drink. He was an accountant. We ended up working together for 8 months afterwards. And that was only possible. So you asked, like, do you see social media? Social media is a daily drip. To me, if you aren't building a personal brand, you're literally making every other lead gen, every other conversion metric in your funnel suffer because of it. Because it gives you access to be able to talk to people every day. Imagine you could write a letter to thousands and millions of people every day and they would get it, or they would have a chance of getting it. Would you do it? Absolutely, you would. No doubt.
Right. Yeah.
So that's me. I see social media. It's hard because a lot of people in business want a direct correlation of success. But to me, it's just like when I was fundraising. I would be in my boss's office and he'd be like, "How do we raise $10 million? What's the one thing we can do?" And I'm like, "Well, man, you can't just do one thing. You got to do all these things. Like, you have to create this environment for success." And to me, marketing is creating an environment for success. And building a personal brand is right in the center of that environment. It's right there. And then everything spokes out of that.
Wow. That's a great creating an environment for success. I'm going to remember that one.
Oh, you got to do it.
But like on social, I guess your reach, right? Like if you were just using social, like your reach on,
You have to have the things, right? You got to have, where are you leading people? What's the conversion? Because you want to pull. It's like if you start with 1 million people seeing your stuff on social, then you're like, okay, now I want to do a community newsletter landing page to capture some of these people. So let's say you got to start with 1 million. Let's say you captured 10,000 of them.
yeah.
And then it's like, okay, and I'll talk about my own journey. I started with social media. I'm like, man, I wish I could talk to these people more. So then I started a newsletter. So now I have a 10,000 plus people, subscribers to my newsletter, with the goal to getting it to 100 in the next 18 to 24 months. So now it's social media is the drumbeat. It positions me with ultimate social proof and authority. The newsletter is my daily conversation with my audience. And then I can start pulling them into other things that I want to monetize on the back end.
Interesting. And so like what you're seeing is like, okay, social, big broadcast. Then I guess you use when people are intrigued, they come follow you, you have some kind of conversion thing that's like low stakes, right? Like,
Yep.
Here, read this,
You can do free resource. Like, you can tie it to anything you want, right? We talk about lead magnets, email educational courses, workshops, all those types of funnels. You can start funneling them into there.
And then eventually it's get them down to like an owned property, like a newsletter. And then you can kind of experiment with different offers in the newsletter or whatever it is.
Well, that email list, man,
Email list. Yeah.
let's say Twitter and LinkedIn exploded tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, now I got my email list, right? But how do you get people to an email list? It's like chicken and egg.
Yeah.
Right. So like people are like, well, if email list is owned audience, then I'll just do an email list. Well, what's your conversion metric there? Well, you got to have social, you got to have something pulling people into that email list. And that's where social comes in.
Yeah. And then how have you seen the algorithms changing? Like, give us a little take on like the last couple of years on X and LinkedIn.
Anybody that says they have an algorithm figured out is lying. They're bold-faced liars. The thing about algorithms is they will always shift. There will always be a meta. And I'm a game generation, right? Call it NCAA 25 is about to come out. And people are going to get NCAA 25. And there's going to be 3 plays in NCAA 25 where people are just going to destroy whoever they play. And people are going to be really mad. Well, then what the game creators are going to do is they're going to patch that. Okay, so there's always a meta and an advantage to any platform. And so for the last 4 years, I mean, we're talking about an Elon takeover. LinkedIn switched to a creator mode. Before they didn't do followers. Now they have an ability for people to get followers on LinkedIn. And our job, the reason people work with our agency is they're not going to figure that out on their own. Like we're literally testing thousands of posts every month to determine what gives you the highest likelihood of success. And if for some reason that methodology goes away, it's our responsibility to then determine the new methodology in order to achieve success on the platforms. That's why people give up on social media so fast, because without working with an expert like us, you're literally posting and praying. You're posting something, you're like, man, I spent a lot of time on that. I hope it does good. Probably going to get a couple likes. Maybe like my mom or her best friend or something like that will comment on it. But you really like it's so involved with the algorithm. And what I've seen is the one thing that rings true, no matter what the algorithm does, authentic storytelling, offering true value content is going to win out. That's the long game I tell people all the time. It's like the only differentiator in you and your business and everybody else that does the same thing that you do is yourself.
Yeah.
It's your story of how you got there. It's how you work with clients. It's your methodology and what you're doing. And if you share that consistently over time, you're going to get way more tired of your message before your audience gets tired of your message.
That's a key. I think you get tired of your own message.
That's the key. Because people will be like, I'll have clients that are like, oh, we already said this. And I'm like, well, we need to say it again. And we need to say it again next month. And we need to say it differently this month. I mean, I've been posting online. Next month will be 3 years of me posting every day online. And my goal is to post until I don't want to post anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with 1 or 2% of your potential audience sees something, right? I mean, obviously.
That's right.
It's going to take a lot of repetition.
That's right, man. Yep.
And that's another thing that I think I kind of learned from you guys. It's not like you have to blanket social media 50 times a day. It's like one really compelling post a day.
Well, you asked about the algorithm. Let's get really geeky for a second, okay? If you post too much on an algorithm, you're actually cannibalizing yourself.
Right.
Right. So if you post too much on one social media platform, every time you post, you're telling that social media platform to prioritize the new post over your old post. That's why you have to give, and there's usually a 24 to 48 hour shelf life on a post. LinkedIn's a little extended right now. Twitter's actually done a really good job. 2 years ago, Twitter, you have a 24-hour shelf life and nobody's ever going to see it again, probably, unless they go to your profile and read it. Now it's probably extended more to 48 to 72 hours. And then it can also recrop back up because of the For You page integration that they had about a year ago. That's really geeky though.
Yeah.
That's really geeky.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important for people to understand. And like, I think the other thing you guys really recommend is sort of having 3 or 4 core things that you kind of do variations on a theme of. So it might be a story of how you started, how you approach business, something about you personally, blah, blah, blah. And then you kind of like cycle through different aspects of that core story, right?
Yeah. And I'll say this as well. Yeah. So optimization of your profiles is very important. Where are you directing traffic? Telling your story in unique ways repetitively is an important thing. Giving them your unique value props is an important thing. But another thing that the reason people hire us is we handle 99% of the work. The true conversion factor on social media is actually being social and engaging. And that's where the clients that come in and actually, because you can go to any pool. You can go to people that are acquiring businesses. You can go to people that are in e-commerce. You can go to people that are this and doing that. And you can actually start infiltrating those pools just by going in and adding value and being a human. You're having conversations with people on a daily basis. So prioritizing engaging and actually connecting with people on the platform, just super, you're going to grow and you're going to see success without it. But if you're talking about like a key conversion metrics that supercharges your growth, it's going in, and I'm talking like 10 to 20 minutes a day, just commenting and engaging with the people that you want to gain audience, or you want to extract some of their audience from them because it just, you appear more.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, like what I got the sense that the social media platforms really got into this thing where they were trying to monetize through advertising. So it was basically pay. It's got more and more pay to play. But then the TikTok thing came in and they realized, oh, we need to just keep people on this platform all the time. Right.
Yep.
And so.
And all of them are moving towards that.
They all move toward this engagement model. So they want you on there and they want you writing content that keeps people on there. And yeah, they're still going to charge you. The easy way is they'll charge you to reach this audience. But it felt like that was the engagement stuff was deprioritized for some period of time. And now it's kind of coming back. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Well, Clifton, this has been awesome. I think we are at time, unfortunately. If people want to reach out, what's the best way? Connect.
Yeah. So you can obviously Clifton Sellers on LinkedIn. Legacy Builder __. There's an insurance agent with 7 followers that took Legacy Builder as a handle on X, Twitter. Been trying to track him down for 2 years. If you know the guy, let me know. And then legacybuilder.co for our website if you want to learn about working with us.
Yeah, I definitely. And you have your newsletter daily. I mean, my conversion was reading. I don't know actually how I first came. It's probably on X somewhere, but really getting in and reading the newsletter like really helped me understand what you guys are doing.
Branding Daily is our newsletter. We send it out daily with stories, insights, tricks, tips. It's been nice, man. That's been a cool experience.
Yeah, it's been a great offering. So anyway, all right, Clifton, thank you. We appreciate your time.
Appreciate you, brother.
You've been listening to the Small Business Mentor podcast, brought to you by Alan Pence. For more insights on how to navigate your business through its black holes, visit @apence on X. Don't forget to search for Small Business Mentor in your podcast app to subscribe. Thank you for joining us, and here's to your next leap in business growth.